Did you know that true friendships are rarer than you think? In a world that's more connected than ever, many people still struggle with feelings of loneliness and isolation. We often find ourselves surrounded by acquaintances, but lacking deep, meaningful connections. The truth is, building and maintaining genuine friendships in today's busy world requires more than just good intentions. It requires self-awareness, effort, and the right mindset. If you want to form lasting, authentic friendships, you need to understand how life's inevitable changes impact relationships. From career shifts to family obligations, priorities change, and sometimes friendships fade as a result. But the good news is, the Stoic philosophy offers practical tools and timeless wisdom for navigating these challenges. In this video, we're diving into the real reasons behind social isolation, trust issues, and how shifting your priorities can lead to deeper, more meaningful connections. We'll explore how the Stoics viewed friendship, why social skills matter, and how to adapt to life changes without losing the bonds that matter most. So, if you're ready to unlock the secrets to cultivating authentic relationships in today's world, keep watching. Number 1. The rarity of true friendship, a Stoic perspective. Friendship, at its most genuine, is often compared to rare and precious gems like diamonds, elusive and difficult to find, yet incredibly valuable when discovered. Think back to the early days of your life, when friendships seemed to blossom effortlessly, like flowers after the rain. Whether it was that childhood friend you shared secrets with or the high school buddy who understood your unspoken thoughts, friendships then felt simple, carefree, and abundant. Now, as time has passed and life's responsibilities have grown, you might feel the weight of an uncomfortable truth. Friendships are not as easy to come by as they once were. You're not alone in feeling this way. It's common, particularly as we age, to reflect on the shifting landscape of our relationships. But Stoic philosophy encourages us to embrace this reality rather than fight against it. According to the Stoics, true friendship is rare precisely because it requires more than just proximity or shared interests. It demands trust, vulnerability, and a deep connection that transcends superficial bonds. It's like searching for a diamond in a sea of stones. Most are imitations, but that makes finding the real thing all the more special. Have you ever found yourself nostalgic for those days when you didn't have to think so hard about friendship? When companionship came naturally, without the complexities of adulthood weighing down every interaction? Remember the joy of finding someone who truly got you. That kind of bond is rare, and as we grow older, it becomes clearer why true friendship is so difficult to forge and even harder to maintain. You may even start to wonder, does the absence of these friendships reflect something about me? Am I not doing enough to form these connections, or is the world simply more disconnected now? These are the kinds of questions that can tug at your heart. But Stoicism teaches us that it's not about how many friends we have, but the quality of those friendships. The fleeting nature of superficial relationships highlights the value of finding that one or two people with whom you can form a genuine connection. It's a curious thought, isn't it? In a world where we are more connected than ever through social media, technology, and endless networking opportunities, why does true friendship feel so distant? Stoic philosophers like Epictetus and Seneca remind us that the quality of our relationships, not the quantity, is what matters most. They challenge us to shift our focus from accumulating a large number of acquaintances to nurturing deeper, more meaningful bonds with the few people who truly matter. This perspective can change how we view our social lives, reminding us that scarcity in friendship is not a reflection of failure, but a testament to the value of what's truly rare. Number 2, Embracing introversion, turning perceived weakness into strength. Have you ever walked into a crowded room and felt an overwhelming urge to leave? The chatter, the laughter, the energy, all of it feels like too much. While others seem to effortlessly mingle, you find yourself retreating to the edges, feeling out of place, misunderstood, or simply drained. For those who identify as introverts, this scenario may feel all too familiar. But what if this tendency to shy away from the crowd wasn't a weakness, but rather a strength? Stoicism offers us a way to shift our perspective, encouraging us to embrace our nature rather than fight against it. Think of all the times you've been told, directly or indirectly, that extroversion is the ideal, whether it's at work, in social settings, or even within your own family. Society seems to celebrate those who can strike up a conversation with anyone, anywhere, at any time. But here's the truth: being introverted is not a flaw. It's a different way of interacting with the world, and within it lies immense power. Marcus Aurelius, one of the great Stoic philosophers, would have called this acceptance of your true self an essential step toward inner peace. Accept the things to which fate binds you, he said, and in doing so you unlock your potential. Now imagine your younger self. Remember those quiet moments of reflection, of being deeply immersed in your thoughts or a good book, while the world around you buzzed with activity. Maybe you weren't the loudest kid in the classroom or the life of the party, but there was something in those quiet moments that felt authentic, an inner world that was rich and full of meaning. That's the beauty of introversion. It allows you to observe, to think deeply, and to connect with the world in a way that others might miss. As you grew older, perhaps you felt the pressure to change, to be more outgoing, to speak up more often, or to force yourself into social situations that felt uncomfortable. You might have asked yourself, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I just be more like them?" But Stoicism reminds us that there is nothing wrong with embracing who we are. It's not about conforming to societal expectations. It's about understanding and leveraging your unique perspective. The Stoics believed that by knowing ourselves, we become more resilient, more grounded, and better equipped to handle the challenges of life. Here's where curiosity steps in. What would happen if you stopped seeing introversion as something to fix and started seeing it as your greatest asset? What if, instead of pushing yourself to be something you're not, you leaned into your natural tendencies and used them to your advantage? Stoicism teaches us that true power comes from within, from knowing who we are and using that knowledge to navigate the world. As an introvert, you possess a unique ability to listen, to reflect, and to form deep, meaningful connections with those who matter most. In a world that seems to prioritize extroversion, this shift in perspective can feel revolutionary. It invites you to explore how your introversion can enhance your relationships, your career, and your overall sense of well-being. When you start to view your quiet nature as a strength rather than a weakness, you begin to carve out a path that feels more aligned with your true self. And in doing so, you open yourself up to the possibility of forming authentic, lasting friendships, ones that are built not on the surface-level chatter of small talk, but on the deep, resonant connections that come from truly understanding and accepting yourself.
Number 3. Trust issues in friendships, building emotional balance. When it comes to friendship, trust is the foundation on which everything else is built. Think about the friends you've had over the years, the ones you could call in the middle of the night, the ones who knew your secrets, your dreams, and your fears. Trust allowed those relationships to flourish. But what happens when trust is broken? Perhaps you've experienced betrayal, whether it was a friend who let you down, shared something private, or simply disappeared when you needed them most. That kind of pain lingers, and it can make trusting others again feel almost impossible. For many, trust issues can become a significant barrier to forming new friendships. You might find yourself holding back, keeping people at a distance, afraid that letting someone in will only lead to disappointment. But here's where Stoicism offers a new perspective. The Stoics remind us that we cannot control the actions of others, only our own responses. It's a philosophy that encourages emotional balance in the face of uncertainty. Just as a tree stands firm through changing seasons, you too can stand strong by knowing your own values and staying grounded no matter what happens around you. Do you remember a time when trust came easily? When you didn't have to think twice about opening up to someone? Perhaps it was in childhood or early adulthood when friendships were simpler, unburdened by the complexities of life. But as we grow older, we learn that trust is not something to be given freely. It's earned, piece by piece, through consistent actions and mutual respect. And yet, even as trust becomes more difficult to give, the desire for deep, meaningful connections remains. You might find yourself asking, how do I rebuild trust after it's been broken? Or how do I trust someone new when I've been hurt before? These are natural questions, and they reflect a deep-seated need for connection and security. But Stoicism teaches us that while trust in others is important, it should never be the sole foundation of our emotional well-being. True strength comes from within, from knowing who we are and what we stand for, regardless of the actions of those around us. Curiosity may prompt you to explore this further. What would it look like to approach trust differently? Instead of expecting perfection from others, Stoicism encourages us to accept that people, like the changing seasons, are unpredictable. This doesn't mean closing ourselves off from new connections, but rather learning to navigate relationships with a sense of emotional balance. When trust is broken, it's not the end of the world. It's an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become stronger. Picture this: a conversation with a friend who has let you down. Instead of reacting with anger or retreating into silence, you approach the situation with calm and openness. You express your feelings, listen to their perspective, and together you navigate the complexities of the situation. It's not about placing blame or building walls. It's about understanding that trust is a two-way street, and communication is the key to rebuilding it. The Stoics believed that by maintaining emotional balance, by not allowing ourselves to be swayed too much by either joy or sorrow, we can navigate the unpredictable nature of human relationships with grace. Trust may be fragile, but it's also something that can be rebuilt piece by piece. And in doing so, we not only strengthen our friendships, but also our own sense of resilience. As you reflect on the role of trust in your own friendships, consider how Stoic wisdom can guide you toward building stronger, more emotionally balanced relationships. It's not about closing yourself off to the possibility of hurt, but about learning to navigate the complexities of trust.
Number 4, overcoming social isolation, finding opportunities for authentic connections. At some point in life, we all experience the weight of social isolation, whether due to circumstances or by choice. Maybe you felt it during a quiet weekend with no plans, or perhaps during a phase of life when the friends you once relied on drifted away. In a world that's more connected than ever, the irony is that social isolation can feel more prevalent. It's as though you're surrounded by noise, but somehow feel distanced from the true, meaningful interactions that matter most. Remember a time in your youth when social interactions were more frequent, spontaneous, and filled with ease? Maybe it was during school days, when a simple conversation could lead to a lifelong bond, or a quick trip to the park led to new friendships. Those days felt effortless, didn't they? But as the years pass, life's responsibilities increase, and building new friendships, or even maintaining old ones, can feel more like an uphill climb. Social isolation can creep up slowly. You might not notice it at first, but eventually the quiet moments become louder, and the gaps between meaningful connections grow wider. Suddenly, you're faced with the realization that the busyness of life, work, family, personal obligations, has edged out time for relationships. This realization can stir feelings of loneliness, even for those who are generally content with their own company. In Stoicism, this feeling of isolation is not ignored, but rather examined as part of the human condition. The Stoics believed that while we are social creatures, capable of forming deep connections, we must also find comfort in our own company. They taught that peace of mind begins with self-sufficiency, a concept that is particularly helpful when facing periods of loneliness. While we cannot control when or how others will enter or exit our lives, we can control our own actions and attitudes. As you reflect on your own experiences, perhaps you recall moments where you withdrew from social situations, either out of necessity or by choice. There's no shame in needing solitude. After all, moments of quiet can offer space for self-reflection and growth. But if isolation begins to feel more like a prison than a sanctuary, it's time to explore ways to reconnect. How do you begin to break free from that invisible wall between yourself and others? Curiosity invites you to think about where the opportunities for genuine connection might be hiding. What if the next time you felt isolated, instead of retreating further, you reached out, not in a grand, sweeping gesture, but in small, intentional ways, whether by sending a message to an old friend, joining a group with shared interests, or simply striking up a conversation with a neighbor? The Stoic approach to this is simple: take action where you can and let go of the rest. Instead of focusing on the outcome, how others will respond, or whether you'll find immediate companionship, focus on the act of reaching out itself. Overcoming social isolation doesn't mean forcing yourself into uncomfortable or overwhelming situations. It's about finding balance, allowing space for solitude when needed, but also recognizing when it's time to re-engage with the world. Stoicism reminds us that while we can't control how others will react, we can control our efforts to build and maintain connections. With this mindset, even small steps toward breaking isolation can lead to profound change over time, creating opportunities for authentic, meaningful relationships. Number 5, developing social skills. The Stoic approach to meaningful conversations. Conversations are the bridge between us and others, the foundation on which friendships are built and maintained. But how often do you find yourself in a conversation that feels more like a transaction than a genuine exchange? Maybe it's small talk at work or a quick chat with a neighbor. The words are there, but the depth isn't. In today's fast-paced world where communication is constant but often shallow, it can be challenging to engage in truly meaningful conversations. Think back to a time when you had a conversation that left you feeling understood, appreciated, or inspired. Maybe it was with a close friend, family member, or even a stranger. Those moments stand out because they are rare, and in them we feel a sense of connection that transcends the ordinary. But how do we cultivate these kinds of conversations more regularly? The Stoics offer a path forward, teaching us that meaningful conversations don't happen by accident. They are the result of deliberate effort and mindfulness. According to the Stoics, developing social skills is not about mastering the art of talking. It's about mastering the art of listening and being present. True connection is found not in impressing others with our words, but in understanding the person in front of us. You might feel nostalgic for a time when social skills were less about networking and more about connecting. Perhaps you remember a simpler time when conversations weren't rushed and people gave each other their full attention. Today, distractions abound: phones, emails, the constant need to multitask, and it's easy to fall into the trap of superficial interactions. But the Stoic approach reminds us that every conversation, no matter how brief, has the potential to be meaningful if we approach it with intention. Here's a question to ponder. What if, in your next conversation, you focus less on what you wanted to say and more on truly understanding the other person? What if, instead of waiting for your turn to speak, you listened deeply without judgment and responded from a place of empathy? Stoicism teaches that the quality of our interactions is a reflection of our internal state. When we are calm, grounded, and present, our conversations naturally become more meaningful. Curiosity can lead you to experiment with this approach. The next time you're in a conversation, whether with a friend, family member, or colleague, try applying Stoic principles. Slow down, listen more than you speak, ask thoughtful questions. Notice how these small shifts in behavior can transform the nature of your interactions. You might find that people respond more openly, that conversations feel richer, and that the connections you form are more genuine. Developing social skills, according to the Stoics, is not about becoming more charismatic or persuasive. It's about being fully present with the people around you. It's about approaching each interaction with humility, curiosity, and the understanding that every person you meet has something to teach you. This mindset can help you move beyond surface-level conversations and toward deeper, more meaningful connections. Number 6, shifting priorities, how life changes impact. Friendships. Life is constantly changing, and with each new chapter, our priorities shift. As we move through different stages, graduation, careers, marriage, parenthood, retirement, our focus naturally shifts. The friends we once saw every weekend may fade into the background, not because we no longer care about them, but because life's demands have pulled us in different directions. It's a common experience, yet it can be difficult to navigate. Do you remember the days when friendship was one of your top priorities? Maybe it was in your 20s when you had more time and fewer responsibilities. Back then, it was easier to maintain close connections. But as life became more complicated, with the addition of jobs, families, and personal goals, friendships sometimes took a back seat. It wasn't intentional, but as your focus shifted to other areas of your life, the effort to nurture those friendships may have diminished. Stoicism teaches us that change is the only constant. We cannot control the fact that life will move forward, and with it, our priorities will shift. But we can control how we respond to these changes. Instead of feeling guilt or regret over friendships that may have faded, the Stoic approach encourages us to accept these changes as a natural part of life's ebb and flow. Friendships, like all things, evolve. Some may fade, while others grow stronger, and new ones will form along the way. At this point, you might feel a sense of nostalgia for the friendships you once had, the ones that played a central role in your life but have since drifted apart. Maybe you wonder how things might have been different if circumstances had allowed more time or space for those relationships. But rather than dwell on what's been lost, Stoicism invites us to focus on the present moment and the relationships that still have room to grow. Curiosity might lead you to consider, how have your priorities shifted over the years, and how has that impacted your friendships? What relationships are worth nurturing as you move into the next chapter of your life? Stoicism reminds us that we cannot be all things to all people, but we can be fully present for the relationships that matter most to us right now. As life continues to change, so will your friendships. But this isn't something to fear or resist. Instead, it's an opportunity to deepen your connection with the people who remain by your side and to create new bonds with those whose paths align with yours. Stoicism teaches that by accepting the inevitability of change, we can approach our relationships with a sense of gratitude for the moments we've shared and a sense of hope for the ones yet to come. As we've journeyed through the Stoic approach to friendships, it's clear that forming deep, authentic connections requires intentional effort. Whether it's embracing your introversion, overcoming trust issues, or navigating life's shifting priorities, Stoicism provides the tools to not only build lasting relationships, but also to find peace in the process. Friendships, much like diamonds, are rare and precious, worth the patience and care it takes to nurture them. If you've made it this far, drop 100 in the comments. This shows you're part of the 0.01% who actually finish what they start. And that's an admirable quality. If you're serious about applying this wisdom to transform your life and relationships, make sure to subscribe to our channel and become part of our growing community. Keep watching, keep learning, and most importantly, stay stoic.